So I wanted to share with you a little bit more about a topic that's come up quite often. If you're a non-photographer, so if you consider yourself not a wildlife photographer or you don't do photography as a hobby, can you still come on a wildlife tour with Wild Eye? And it's a very simple answer in the end, but I'll explain it to you a little bit more as we go about in this video. So, for me, the most important part of this is getting to understand the two different species. The wildlife photographer, be it as a professional, as a hobby, and then the people who still love nature, love coming out, perhaps take a few photos with the iPhone or a small point and shoot, but not considering themselves wildlife photographers. Short answer is yes, there is an opportunity for the two to merge. Let's look at what is a wildlife photographer. Now, all of you have been on safari, perhaps you've seen these guys going on the game views with these big lenses. In general, you can spot a photographer from a distance when you're on safari. I think the most important thing for any person who comes on a safari with us is to have time in a sighting. I think the worst fear for a wildlife photographer is being rushed out of a sighting. If you are just on your own and you have some other guests, you're a wildlife photographer, but you have other guests in the car with you, what are you going to do? At some point, these other guests are going to get bored, right? And then they're going to ask to move. And you're going to be sitting there and be like, man, I don't want to move. Let's just give 5 minutes. But eventually, they're going to want to move on, right? They've got sundowners to attend to. Here you are sitting looking at this line. What do you do? How do you, do you leave? Do you stay? Do you fight? And at the end of the day, you got to go with what the group decides, right? So you're one guy against 5. And in the end, you leave. And I think that's the worst fear for a wildlife photographer, being in a vehicle with guests not like-minded. There are other factors. The guys like to leave early in the morning. So in general, you want to try and get an animal, especially a predator, before the sun rises in the morning, because then you can be with it for a little while. When the first light breaks, beautiful light on the animal. You want to spend time in sightings. You also want to be out for a longer period. Instead of being back at camp for breakfast at 9 o'clock in the morning, perhaps you want to come back a little bit later. Maybe even the full day out in the field. There are camps where that's an option. They'll stay out all day if they can. They like to stay in a sighting, especially if there's something potentially that could happen. They like to stay there the whole day because they want to see what's going to go down. Tomorrow morning, repeat. Up early, cup of coffee, something to eat, out before sunrise, and the day repeats. Now, if you're a non-photographer, you get people who are very enthusiastic when it comes to viewing nature, and then you get people who are perhaps just there for a good time, maybe their first safari. Regardless of which category you fall in general, you tend to stick with the norm. Game drive time, whatever's prescribed by the lodge, you'll usually do that. So you'll get out, instead of leaving half an hour before sunrise, you'll leave 15 minutes after sunrise. Enjoy sunrise from the deck, have your coffee, get on the game view in the morning. The photographers who left 45 minutes, an hour ago, will probably have found something that you can respond to and go and have a look at. But you don't care so much for the photograph that you have to be there at the best light, right? Eventually, maybe you see one or two things and you've spent a bit of time, the leopard was sleeping, you gave it 10 minutes, maybe we should head on and look for something else. Anyway, stop, a beautiful view, have a coffee, something to eat, back to the lodge by 9:30. You have a spa treatment booked for the afternoon, maybe a bit of activity, some swimming, catch up on some sleep, lunch, and then you're out again in the afternoon. And again, the same kind of thing. You tend to always stop for sundowners, regardless of that being the best time of day for photography. The sundowner is quite important. For the most part, the two, there's nothing, no right, no wrong. It's fine to do either. As long as you're here, you're appreciating nature, enjoying the experience. But now the safaris that we run are photographically minded. It's not that we cater exclusively for the wildlife photographer. Often we have nature lovers, people who really enjoy being out there, and photographers merge and come on safari together with great success, guys. The important thing is to understand each other and to know how the one works, right? They probably lean towards catering for the photographer, for the wildlife photographer. It doesn't matter which level. That's a whole different topic is, should you come if you're just a hobby, or is it only for professionals? Short answer, every photographer is welcome. Now, the cool thing is, I'll give you an example. I had a guest of mine, Miles Miller. He wanted to come out on safari, but just to experience what he saw me sharing on Instagram, right? He wasn't a photographer by trade or hobby or anything. I just told him, buddy, let me just bring a camera for you. I'll bring it small, bring you one lens, bring you a camera, you just come and take photos. And he's like, I don't really know if just let me bring it for you. Miles, you'll remember this if you're watching. That first evening, he was hooked. We took some photos, beautiful light of baboons up on a log. Still remember it. Couldn't believe that he took those photographs. Now this is a guy coming from New York City, busy, no real time for photography. All of a sudden going on safari, getting a camera in his hand and just being blown away by the fact that he can take that great picture. Obviously with assistance and help and a bit of editing, but now he's gone home, he's bought camera gear and he's bought lenses and bodies, and he's coming out on safari, and he is, by any means of the word, he's now an avid wildlife photographer. But it didn't start that way for him. Just because you don't own a camera, just because you've never done it, doesn't mean you won't enjoy it. And something we love doing is introducing people to wildlife photography in a fun, stress-free environment. So if you're sitting there looking at this thing and you're thinking, geez, how do I ever do this? How can I become a wildlife photographer? Or how can I go on safari with wildlife, but I don't enjoy photography that much? The answer is yes, you can, okay? I can hear this like wildlife photographer bunch thinking, oh man, they're gonna mess up my sighting. I'm gonna have no time. They're gonna wanna go. But that's where you gotta understand each other. The photographer has to understand that they have maybe a first-time safari goer or non-photographer on board and be a little bit more patient. But the non-photographer for only so long until they come on safari with me, they also need to understand the needs of what the safari is about. We're trying to maximize the game viewing experience. We're not there for the spa treatments. All of that is a bonus, but we're there for the game, the wildlife. We want to get the best out of these animals, be it jaguars or lions or pumas or tigers or mountain or bears, whatever it is. You know, we want to get the best out of these animals, okay? That means leaving early, spending a bit of time with an animal, sitting there watching them, waiting, enjoying the experience. If you don't mind that, then great. Waiting something out. So, you know, if there's a leopard up a tree or it's on the ground with a carcass, we know that at some point it's bound to take that carcass up the tree, and the guys want to get shots of that moment. So if you don't mind just sitting there enjoying it, watching the experience, binoculars are such a great tool, guys. You can sit there and watch that leopard with binoculars. In that moment, the avid photographer sitting there not taking his eye off his camera will be happy, and the guys enjoying the experience, perhaps with a rental camera from Wild Eye or whatever, binoculars in hand, they'll be happy because they're sitting there and they have a front row seat for the greatest show. We're always in the best position. We park the vehicle so that the light is great, or the position or the view, so you'll anyway come in and enjoy the most magnificent views of these animals. It's not just parking, there's your animal, let's go. You're sitting there because we as the guides on these trips and hosting these tours, we understand these animals. We know that if you just trust us, if you just wait a little bit, that animal's going to get up and hunt, or it's going to take that kill up a tree. So as just a safari enthusiast joining the trip, you still get an amazing experience out of it. You know, we got to respect each other, then it's great. But if you want to, you know, if you're impatient and you just want to leave, you don't want to stay, you don't want to wait it out, or you don't want to be out that long, then maybe a private safari is for you. But in a group, we have to be understanding of each other. It is totally possible for the two to merge, and it has done so in the past very, very well. Many people who have come out on safari with us, or on tour with us, wherever, all over the world, that weren't photographers have converted to being a photographer. They now own a camera, they enjoy it, they understand things like aperture and f-stop and ISO, exposure compensation, and it helps you because you go home, maybe you take a few photos of the next family get together, or grandma or grandpa, or kids sport events, whatever it is. You know, it certainly helps you moving forward. I hope with that in mind you've enjoyed this video. If it raised any questions, please let me know. Guys, no need to stress. I can see all of our Wild Eye guests, the photographers out there like, oh man, now we're gonna have more non-photographers. But again, guys, go back to what I said about understanding the differences. You gotta merge, you gotta understand one another. As I wrap this up, just again, keep in mind, if you are a non-photographer, you know, there's always an opportunity. I've no doubt that you'll love having a camera hand. You'll love shooting, you'll love the experience. So come out, come and try it, come and join us. Send us a message. Don't decide off the bat that Wild Eye looks photographic, so I'm not gonna go because I don't photograph. Don't be like that. Give us a chance. Let us chat about this. And if possible, let's get you out on safari with us. Thanks so much for the time, guys. Really appreciate it. Leave comments below. Send me a DM, send me an email. There's a lot of great safaris coming up, and certainly if you've thought about joining, whatever your circumstances are, then let me know, send us a message. Thanks again, and until next time.